Captain Eric and Chief Technical Officer Dieter Staudinger, without which there is no show. No Dieter, no show. But the 2 out of 4 of us are here again, and we're going to talk about some current events, take questions, that sort of thing. Flight Attendant Diane tonight is doing her level best, working to prop up the U.S. domestic aviation system. She's a very good flight attendant. She recently has received a perfect safety audit from her company, which is kind of a big deal. And you remember us maybe teasing her in January for being flight attendant of the month in January. So we were calling her Miss January for the whole month. Ron, however, is doing the opposite. He is in Europe, engaged in a Machiavellian plot to overtax the European aviation system, which, if you've seen any news, is already pretty well overtaxed. So,
well,
anyway,
yeah, Eric.
yeah, yeah.
I think what you're meaning to say is he's on vacation, right? You knew that.
He's on a vacation. I didn't know he ever took vacations.
Well,
I was misinformed.
If you're Captain Ron, you can mix pleasure and work because you get to fly to different places. So, yeah, sorry to burst your bubble here, but
I didn't see that devious streak in him either. It kind of shocked me.
Well, if you are new here, this is Fearless Flight Live, our weekly show for you or anyone who is nervous or afraid to fly. And we cover lots of current news and events in the aviation industry. We hopefully get to answer your live questions that you are bringing to us here on the show. We got a bunch of questions that we have also from even last week's show still to answer. And I want to start today with an update from our fearless leader, Captain Ron. He sent us a vlog, a video blog. So, Eric, you're going to be my code technical chair here, and let me know if this is gonna get us the sound. That's
okay.
all right.
I'll yell right away if it doesn't roll right.
All right. Okay. And so if all goes well, you should see
Yep.
a map of Copenhagen. And,
there it is.
All right, and I'm gonna let that video roll.
Hi, everybody. Hey, my best out there to all of you. Actually, kind of missing the whole Fearless Flight show, and been talking to Eric and Dieter and Diane along the way. Just a quick update. I am in Denmark, and I think I may have mentioned last week.
More volume, Dieter, if you can do it.
Has really been a gift and a blessing. I was invited by a longtime client who's become a friend, a Fearful Flyer, and he invited me to accompany him and his family over to Europe. And so far on the trip, we've gone from LAX to Paris, Paris to Rome, Rome on a 7-day cruise, 8-day cruise, and then Rome to Tel Aviv. Spent the night in Tel Aviv, got on an airplane, and flew 4.5 hours up to Copenhagen and Denmark to visit another client that I met randomly last September who happened to be afraid to fly. And I told her an anecdote of the only other time I came to Denmark was 50 years ago in search of some family members. And I wasn't very well informed about that. And as it turns out, the naming convention in Denmark is, my name is Nielsen, for example, and the origins of Nielsen was the son of Niels. So they use that as a convention. So it turns out Nielsen is the second most common name in Denmark, the first one being Jensen, son of Jens. And so it's very difficult to track your ancestry in many cases. So anyway, long story short, this woman said, if you ever get to Denmark, I'd be more than happy to help you try to trace some of your ancestry over here. And so we engaged in conversation, and I said, well, if I get to Denmark, I will help you get over your fear of flying. So as it turns out, about the time that the show goes live tonight, I will be leaving their home to accompany her to the airport, and we're going to fly from Copenhagen to Zagreb and get some lunch, spend a little bit of time, and then get back on an airplane and fly to Warsaw and then back to Copenhagen all tomorrow. So keep your fingers crossed. Hope it's going to be a good day and all that. And but anyway, been talking to a lot of fearful flyers, and I hope if you are have been a 201 participant, the Clear for Takeoff 201 class, I hope you'll tune in tomorrow, Thursday night, for our monthly Clear for Takeoff 201 Global Online Course monthly coaching webinar. And we're going to talk about questions that you have. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the experiences I've had. I swear I've been flying almost as much as I did when I was working, and it's been really interesting and a very busy environment over here. I've been through the Paris airport, the Rome airport, the Tel Aviv airport, and they're all packed. Just amazing amounts of traffic. And it's interesting to see the differences and the nuances between the way we do things in the United States and international airports. So I'll be talking about those things, and again, answering your questions on Thursday night along with Dieter. Hope you can make it. You can see by the map here, we flew into Copenhagen, and the young woman that I'll be flying with tomorrow happens to live in Holbæk. It's a little town right there. You can see it in the kind of the center of the map. And let me close this. And I found out my geography wasn't as good as I thought it was either. Turns out my relatives that there are over 600 islands in the country of Denmark, and it turns out my relatives live way over here in Jutland, up in this part of the country. And it's about 300 kilometers away. So, and we weren't able to actually contact anybody that might be of a direct lineage. So we kind of forewent that, and I believe that friends are chosen family. So we decided that we would just make each one of us mutual family members here. But anyway, so tomorrow, as I mentioned, we'll get the map to expand here, and we'll be flying from Denmark up here down to Croatia. Zagreb is down in here, and then up to Warsaw. Let's see, Warsaw, I have to blow this up a little bit. There we go. So we'll be flying down here to Croatia, and up to Warsaw, and then back to Copenhagen for our day tomorrow. So again, wish my client well, and I wish all of you the best. And then on Thursday, I'll be traveling back to Tel Aviv to finish up the last 5 days of my trip down here in Israel, reconnecting with my client, and then we'll be flying from Israel all the way back to Los Angeles International, which is about a 14 and a half, almost 15-hour flight. That will be the longest flight I've ever taken. I'm looking forward to it, and I'll have plenty to report on when I get back next week, and we get back to, or at least I get back to normal. So, okay, that's more than enough information, and I hope y'all have a great show tonight. I know you'll enjoy Dieter and Eric's company. And you'll be in good hands. And so thanks a lot for supporting us all this time, and happy landings. And I can't wait to talk with you all on Thursday night. Please join us, because I'll be getting up at 3:30 in the morning for the show because of the time difference. So anyway, have a great evening, happy landings, and wish you all well. Bye-bye.
Wow, I'm pretty envious.
So he's definitely jetting around Europe, that's for sure.
Yeah, even if it's not intentionally, still not helping the aviation system over there, even if it is a vacation.
Well, yeah, that should be a fun day tomorrow, and and we already got a couple of questions, but I will actually start with something that Ron has mentioned, and if you give me a moment here, I'll put that in the chat as well with a link. So, Captain Ron and I were talking just earlier today, and so we decided that we wanted, with the summer season, traveling season, and lots of things going on, people getting ready to travel again, fly again. Lots has changed. Lots has gotten a lot less convenient and less comfortable, which wasn't always great news for fearful flyers. So we said we're gonna open up the monthly group coaching call that we do as part of the Cleared for Takeoff 201 online course. We do that every third Thursday of the month, and usually it's just for people who are in the 201 course at the time. But we're gonna be opening up to you, anyone that is watching, but it's on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, and you can join free of charge on Thursday. So that's Thursday 6:30 Pacific, and as soon as I'm done talking, and I'll pass it over to Captain Eric, I will put the link in the chat as well. So once again, it's a group coaching webinar that we're doing this Thursday at 6:30 Pacific, and you are invited. It's free of charge, and or if you know anybody who is afraid to fly, then just pass that on. They can register for free. And without further ado, I'm gonna ask you a question, Captain Eric, that Ty has put into the chat, and what he wants to know is, so what happens if a plane loses all of its engines? So whether it's a single engine, double engine, quadruple engine, triple engine plane, what's going to happen? I mean, we're not necessarily talking about how unlikely that is, although you hopefully will tell us that as well, like how often that has happened to you in your career and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, take it away. Let us know what would happen if both engines or all engines would quit.
Well, we'll just restrict it to an airliner, since that's what most people are worried about and addressing. And as I said, the statistical odds of that are beyond incredibly small. And the few times it's happened in history, you can almost recount on one hand off of millions and millions and millions of flights. And one was, I think, years ago, an Air Transat Airbus A330 that was a famous accident. And we talked about it. The pilots had uploaded fuel and had misinterpreted pounds of fuel for kilograms. And so they had less than half of what they had intended. And when both engines, as we call it, flamed out because of no fuel, the airplane became a glider. But there's still standby electrical power supplies. There's standby systems to generate hydraulic pressure for flight controls and that kind of thing. And these guys happen to be flying across Canada, Canadian-US border, and saw a perfectly located closed Air Force base that they were able to land the airplane at with minimal damage. And the Air Force base was perfectly put underneath them, but they were at high cruise, like 35,000 feet. So they had many, many miles to go. And I don't know what the glide ratio on an A330 is, but they had many miles to glide and many miles to set this up. So they were able to do it. Unfortunately, it was a good weather day. Very few other times in history has this happened. But obviously the airplane does become a glider, and it does have standby power systems to power both hydraulics and electronics, as in the Transat airplane. And the pilots need to do their best to find somewhere to put it. And I'd love to throw a glide ratio number out to you, but because of the frequency of that, I don't have it memorized, but I think it's in the neighborhood of 6 or 7 to 1. So an airplane 5 miles up could glide 30 miles or better, looking for a place to go. If that answers Ty's question.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Ty, let us know if that does answer your question. Maybe one question that we don't ask that often, or we don't get asked that often, but I want to insert that as well. And again, we're not talking about the likelihood of that happening, but what if, first of all, how many redundant power systems for all the critical systems are there on like an Airbus or a Boeing 737 kind of thing? And what if that disappears during flight? Like, what happens if the power goes out, literally?
Well, almost everything. Some stuff has 2, and a lot of stuff has 3 redundant ways to generate hydraulic power, to generate electrical power, that sort of thing. So in order for that to happen, the plane's inability to generate that stuff, not only would it have to have the double engine failure, but then have the standby pumping ability or standby electrical generating capacity fail. And now the odds are becoming even less than the double engine failure. And if the standby power generating abilities quit without the engines quitting, the main power generation quitting, you would know that stuff is offline or not available, but you would still be operating normally because you would still have all your main hydraulic and electrical power generating capacity working. So coming down to the point where it was a dark black rock, I don't even know that that's ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that that's ever happened.
Yeah.
So, but if it does, we'll sure ask somebody, hey, how was that?
Yeah, well, I it's just a question that seems kind of like in the same neighborhood of, both engines failing, but again, the likelihood of that stuff, like, I think you mentioned that once, like, do you actually personally know somebody where one engine has failed?
Flying an airplane that the single engine has failed, which does happen from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's usually a pilot fueling error or maintenance error or maintenance ignored or something, because the airplane isn't cared with the level of an airliner. But personally, do I know somebody who's force landed because the engine quit? Yeah, I know a guy whose friend's brother's cousin who was an extremely competent and highly regarded airline pilot at a major airline and a check airman, and he was flying himself home and he ran out of gas. That guy, that's the only guy I know.
and for everyone watching, we want to make sure this is not happening on commercial airliner here. So, but there are a couple follow-up questions, and Ty is grateful, but he's asking, so why did why did they have to land in the Hudson then? Was he too far away from an airport to glide there all the way, or?
He was yes. And B, it was so close to after takeoff that he had no altitude and no glide time to work with. And with a perfect day like that, and the Hudson being perfectly calm, that was his best chance of putting the airplane on a surface where it wouldn't be destroyed, hurt anybody on the ground, and given that perfect ditch, give the people in the airplane a chance to get out, because it was so quickly after takeoff, less than 1,000 feet in the air, that his time to make that decision was so short. that was his best option right there.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we forget that because air obviously is a different medium than water, but an airplane's wings made it glide right on the air, like literally swim on the air, so to speak, to some degree.
Right.
Which obviously that same function not quite as well, but it does function also when on water. And so for that is actually a viable in a busy place like New York City. I think that was seriously the best option.
Oh yeah, and it's incredible, and we all saw it. And it was an incredibly good ditch, and the airplane floated for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the pictures of everybody standing out in the wing, and it's still floating.
Yeah.
And I don't remember where they were going, but they were not fueled to anywhere near tank capacity because they didn't need to be. So there was still a ton of air in the tanks, making those wings flotation.
Even more buoyant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So Jim Duke has I'm gonna call it a geek question. What's the glide ratio for a B757 or 767?
I gotta look it up, Jim. We don't practice double engine failures, and if you're gonna make me do it, I'll do it while Dieter's doing the class stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess around 7-1, and it depends on weight and that kind of thing. But when Dieter starts talking about classes, I'll look real quick and see if I can find it.
Yeah. Well, actually, Jim has a really cool question that I've actually gotten that on a Facebook message as well about a week and a half ago. And the question is, with all the cancellations going on, some due to weather, some due to staffing, can you explain why pilots time out?
Sure.
I think he didn't want to use the word expire.
That was very nice of him. And if you expire, that's the ultimate timeout because
that is the ultimate timeout.
Can't do anything else ever again. But pilots are strictly regulated by the FAA and by their union contracts, which they fought hard for maximum hours of duty days, maximum hours in a duty day, maximum hours that can be flown in the airplane, and maximum hours they can check in at work and be on duty continuously and fly. And that is absolutely for safety, to prevent pilot fatigue, to prevent pilot fatigue. So that's closely watched. And if you have what we call a rolling delay, where they've flown some and an airplane breaks and they are waiting for another airplane and it doesn't come in, or a new one breaks and that kind of thing. So they're waiting to go. When they've already started the duty day, you can't unstart a duty day without a rest period in there. Generally, minimum 8 hours. You can't, unless you make that rest break, you can't break off that duty day. So if you get in that protracted delay situation, that's how you can expire. and there's nothing else you can do but go to the hotel.
Yeah, and I mean that is, safety is obviously the most important aspect of this whole thing. For 2 crews, so there's a good question on a almost 15-hour flight like the one from Tel Aviv to LAX. How many pilots are there, and how would the crew be, or how would the plane be staffed, I guess, in order to comply with regulations, but also, make sure that.
So on a deal like that, I don't have all the international stuff memorized at heart, but I can guess I'll probably be very close. Generally, on one that long, there's going to be 2 captains. One will be designated the aircraft commander for the flight, but a spare captain, and either 2 or 3 first officers. And they'll all take turns rotating in and out of a bunk, secluded rest area. They won't just go sit in the back and yak with the passengers. They have a bunk and a sleeping area, pretty good quarters, that they can go crawl into and sleep. And they'll set that up before flight. Who's going first, second, third, blah, 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 and how long a rest breaks does anybody want? And generally they'll put one of the first officers in charge of working that out and taking a poll before they go, so they know exactly who's going to be up front when and who's going to do which rest periods. And that's how they break those duty days up with just multiple crews in the airplane.
Wow, that's a I remember Captain Nat on our show not that long ago talking about how that actually kind of works in practice, because he's flying from New Jersey to Tokyo. Is that his route?
It depends. He's a Dallas-based captain, so sometimes it'll be Europe, but sometimes it'll be Asia, and so those Asian flights are like that long, and he could probably tell you that. And so they'll designate Captain A or Captain B, and then First Officer A, the first officer on the flight, and then B, and then C. And when I started when we merged with American and I started flying the 7.6, I never flew that on any super long legs, but I flew it domestic. And it was funny. One of my buddies, my American buddies, goes, "Hey, Eric, do you have a eater on that Hawaii leg?" And I said, "A what?" "An eater, a food boy, an extra FO." And I go, "No." And he goes, "Did you have any idea what I was talking about?" I said, "No." And he said, "Listen, if you're going to be a big international jet pilot, you have to know these terms. Are you ready?" I said, "Yes." So the second first officer is FO-B. It says that on the release. And the third first officer is FO-C. And the first one's FO-A. So since the second one is FB, they call him the food boy. And since the third one is FC, they call him the film critic, watching whatever the movie is. And so a food boy and the film critic. And I had no idea what he's talking about. He's telling me that's just industry slang of how they describe it. I said, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about, Kevin." He goes, "Try and pay attention. You got to pay attention if you're going to keep up."
These are the important things, I'm sure.
So whatever the start of that question was, sorry, is depending on the length of the trip, there's more and more and more crew to cover rest for all of them, rotating rest for all of them.
And that's a perfect follow-up question there from Sharon. She said, "Well, does it get cramped up there in the cockpit? How do you keep from getting cramped up there?" I'm a runner, and sitting in a cockpit would create issues for me, sitting like that all the time. I'd need to stretch. What are issues that pilots deal with when sitting in that small space? Like that's actually a good question.
It's a very good question. Well, in those wide bodies, international planes, those cockpits are huge. They can take 4 people easily in there, and often there'll be a third person up there just talking with them, getting ready to transition, seeing where they are. So when they make the transition, the changeover crew thing to prepare for that. And they're great big things. And you can get up and stretch your legs, stretch your hamstrings on the top of the seats, your quads and everything else. There's not enough room in there to play baseball or golf, but they're huge. So there's a lot of room in there. And the pilots are advised, for exactly what she's saying, to get up from time to time and not just sit there on their bottoms in order to prevent an onset of DVT, or deep vein thrombosis, which can produce clotting and blood pooling and stagnation. They're advised to get up, and there's plenty of room for that. Now, if you looked in the front, the plane that always amazed me was the DC-9-80 or the Super 80. If you look in the front of that thing, that cockpit is so tight. And that's not a big, super long range airplane, but I'd look in there and then I'd see like some 6'4" cowboy get out and get his stuff and get out. And it was almost like a clown car thing, thinking, geez, I wish I'd seen him get in there. I have no idea how he got himself into the seat in there and got out. very tight as opposed to these wide bodies, 777-8s, the A350 and stuff like that. Those cockpits are monster.
Yeah, but that's a great question because on longer flights you gotta make sure that your circulation is staying strong, and I guess for shorter flights it's not as critical. Although if you have an Apple Watch, it'll also remind you every hour to get up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And like Jim says, there's compression socks. So those are
Very good, Jim.
yeah, those are definitely good things to help. Let me kind of just switch gears here. Kind of like to end it for tonight. We have two cleared for takeoff 301 our flight classes coming up, and one of them is going to be on September 10th, going from Phoenix to Burbank and back on September 10th, and the other one will be from Los Angeles area, Burbank. That's September 17th, from Burbank to Sacramento and back, I believe. And I'm just gonna share my screen for that. All the information, I will put the link in the comments. But if you are in the Phoenix or Los Angeles area or San Diego, and you can make your way up to Burbank, we have people coming from all over for these classes. We got a special going on right now where the tuition, that's not the ticket, but the tuition for the 301 class is $397. If you are a current member of the 201 course, the online course, then actually you get another discount. And if you don't, the actual price right now for the flights, the tuition is $397, and you can find all of that information on this page. When we go, hold on, all the way, where are those? Yeah, so we got the details for the Phoenix flight and for the Burbank flight right here, right from this page here, and I will put the link into the chat. And Eric, are you still looking for that glide ratio?
Oh, I found it. I don't even know why we have to take questions from Jim Duke. I should just have a sign that says I don't know. But what I guess, like 6-1 or 7-1, is that what I guess? Something like that.
You said 7-1 for the 767.
And that would be that, or for the 75, and that would be a number that you could actually have enough to deploy gear, flaps, land out of the bottom of. But I got a number just looking into a performance manual section, throwing out 9-1 just for pure gliding, totally dependent on airplane weight. And that was for the 7.5. I didn't look it up for the 7.6, but that's kind of stunning.
So you can. So let me get this straight. So if you're up at, gosh, let's say cruising altitude, can you work that out, the math?
Yeah. So like I said, if you're just making it even 35,000, 7 miles up, let's say you're 7 miles up in the 35 range and you can glide 9, you could glide 63 in a 0 wind. And that doesn't give you time to deploy flaps, drop gear, stuff like that. You need extra for that. But for pure glide range, it's stunning. And
wow. And that's for a massive plane like the 757.
But that, if you ever look at one head on and you go, boy, does that thing have some wings on it. Everybody always says, boy, the power is extreme. And it was. But the stopping ability was extreme, but it was. But at lightweight, it was amazing. We used to come into Phoenix in the morning with a morning bank, and we'd be from the Hawaiian Islands, and we'd be very light on fuel, and we'd see the other planes coming into the pattern behind us. And I remember one time, and we always think we're clever because it's after sunrise, we've been up all night, and the controller asked us, he said, "How fast are you guys going?" And I saw an Airbus A321 swinging on too close behind us. That he did it, not me. There's nothing I can do about it. And I said 124, and I can slow to like 118 or 116, but I got to draw the line somewhere. And the controller goes, "That's not what I meant." That is, he wanted me to go faster because now the other guy was too close, and he had to hold about 150, or he's going to turn in a manhole cover. So he's eating me up. So finally, the controller isn't going to make me go around because he's too close. But finally, the other runway opened up, and he was able to pull him up. I smart mouthed him about how slow we were going, that we could go slower if he wanted. I thought it was a lot funnier than he did at 6 a.m.
At 6 a.m, yeah. Let me just see if there's any more questions here to end. Sharon, there is for so the way we used to do it, we used to do a class at a hotel near an airport in Phoenix, or Air Hollywood over in Burbank, and so we had an all-day class, and then we flew in the afternoon. So COVID kind of made us change that schedule, which was a pretty gruesome schedule, to be quite honest, because they would start around 8:30 for the fearful flyers, a lot earlier for us, and it would end maybe around 8 or 9 at night. So now what we recommend is really the progression is go take the 201 online course. That course has everything and a ton more than what we could ever have taught you in a day at a hotel. And it includes two monthly group coaching webinars that are live as well. And then we also have a now, because now people take it all over the country, we have a poll in the 201 student portal, and we're kind of polling where people want to fly out of. So if we have, I think the other day Captain Ron said he would do it for 4 or 5 people. So if we have 5 people in a geographic area like Boston, for example, which is what we did earlier this year for the first time, then we'll come out to Boston, or it could be Atlanta, it could be Dallas. I mean, wherever there happen to be a small group of people. So that's how that works. And I will put the link to the 201 in there as well in a second. Let me just see if there's any more questions.
Hey, Jim, I just pulled a Boeing manual on the 767, and depending on loaded weight and altitude, they were showing that you could possibly achieve an all engines out glide ratio of 20-1, which is unbelievable.
Wow.
That's unbelievable. But I'd have to look at the pilot operating handbook and get a graph for exact weight and exact everything. But that blows me away.
But that is pretty amazing. That 20-1. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Well, I hope Jim always has great questions, so there you go. But all questions are great questions because they help everyone, not just you, the one who's asking. They help us rethink, our answers every time. It's never, while the content hopefully is always the same, the way we are bringing the information changes as well. And so that's really how human beings learn. You've heard something a few times, but then it clicks, and you can go on. So we're hoping that next week you'll join us. Well, actually, I hope that you'll join us on Thursday for the monthly group coaching webinar, which is free of charge. The link is in the chat. If not for that, then I hope that you will join us next week on our next live show. I don't know. Do we know about Flight Attendant Diane? Is she going to be?
I don't know. I do not know.
So we do know Captain Ron's back. So
he should be back without any without any irregularities by my next Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah, and is he going to be on Thursday too, or not?
Yeah, he's gonna be on from Tel Aviv at that point from the hotel. So,
Yeah, we'll see you guys Thursday. That'd be another interactive forum. That'd be a very good deal for you to be able to do that with no charge.
yeah.
So that'd be fun. And then Ron is back here next week. That'll be good too.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Captain Eric. We pulled another one out of the hat, and I hope that all of you enjoyed what came out of the hat. And yeah, if we don't see you on Thursday, then see you next Tuesday, and Captain Ron will be back in the saddle with us. So, Eric, any last words of wisdom?
No, we pick on Ron for going over, and now we do it too.
That's right. All right. So then, thanks for joining us, and